up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Please ignore the kind of echo that we got going on in this space right now. I just moved into a new apartment, and I am trying to figure out the best place to film and how to do all sorts of stuff. The noise from the street traffic in every other room is pretty high, even though I taped up the windows, and right now we're just in like my enclosed hallway, and I think why it sounds so echoey is because there are so many hard surfaces in here. So I'm gonna try and like hang up some curtains and like do some stuff to try and make it a little bit better, but please bear with me until then. I apologize, I'm really sorry. So in the past year, I read about 223 books, which, wow, that is the most books that I have ever read so far. So today we are going to be going over what are the 15 best books that I read in 2023. Now this video is going to be broken up into two parts. I have the regular novel type books, and that's going to be in the first part of this video, and then I have all of the graphic novels and manga that I've been reading in the past year. I got really into graphic novels and manga, and that's part of the reason why I was able to read so many books. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into my favorite books of 2023. So we're gonna start off with some good old sci-fi, some Illumina by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This book has been out for a while, and part of the reason why I read it is because it's one of the books that have been on my TBR for the longest, so you've probably heard about it. If not, this is one of those unique books where instead of it being told in the normal narrative form, it is a amalgamation of letters and emails and voice channel chat and all sorts of stuff being shared all around this Illumina file that is covering a illegal mining company that existed on this far off planet that a company owned, and a competitor of the company wanted to get this mining planet, and because it was an illegal mining planet, instead of reporting this illegal activity to the authorities, this competitive company, Baytech, decided to go in and just murder everybody on this planet and take over the planet for themselves, because like, what are they gonna do? Is this company going to report to the authorities that they've been doing all of this illegal stuff? No, of course not. And the survivors of this massacre end up getting on a spaceship and are trying to flee and are being pursued by a Baytech ship. And the entire 3-book series is composed of files and this group of survivors desperately like trying to get to the next outpost for help before Baytech ends up catching up to them and kind of finishing off the job. I absolutely loved this entire series. It was really great. It was really fun, even though each book is over 600 pages, because it's made out of emails and voice chats and stuff like that. It goes by really fast. The pages turn really quickly. The chapters, there aren't technically really chapters, but the sections are really short and stuff like that. So it is a good, fun, quick read. And this is one of the books that I really, really wish would be turned into a show, because I just can see the visuals for it. I think that it would just be so amazing, so fun, especially because there's so many different characters. Next up, we have Stay Awake by Megan Golden, and this book actually kicked off my Megan Golden like obsession, where now I have read almost every single book by her because it was so good. So this book is about our main character named Liv, who wakes up and the last thing that she remembers is answering a phone call at her desk, except apparently that happens like 2.5 years ago. She can't remember anything, and every single time she falls asleep, her mind resets back to that day when she answered the phone call. That's the last thing that she can remember. And she unknowingly is being chased by a murderer. So she like wakes up on the first page in this cab, like holding a bloody knife. She has no memory of what's been going on. All of this time has passed. She tries to go back to her apartment, but it's already been sold. There's new people living there. There's just so much going on, and there's just so much tension because we as the reader obviously are remembering like all of these things that we are learning and all these things that are happening, but the main character, who, even though she's desperately trying to stay awake, you know, you can only stay awake for so long before you fall asleep, and every time she falls asleep, she forgets everything that happened. So it's just such a ride, such a crazy thrill to go on, and I just absolutely loved it. It was so good. If you like thrillers, I highly recommend this and several of Megan Goldin's other things because she writes some really good stuff. Our next book is Small Town Pride by Phil Stamper, and this is more of a middle grade read, and it follows our main character Jake, who decides to come out to his parents as gay, and in order to show their love and support for him, they decide to hang this massive pride flag outside of their house, which ends up causing some controversy in their very small town. The mayor lives across the street and has a very cute son that the main character ends up getting a crush on, and it is just super adorable the way that the main character is trying to like be out and proud and be fine with his parents supporting him, but also they're being a little bit too supportive, you know, and how it's creating like so much tension and friction, and he doesn't want there to be tension and friction. He just wants to be like able to be happy and out and proud, and like that's it. And it's just such an adorable story, and I really enjoy it, and it is just a great, cute, quick read, especially for around Pride time. Now we're starting to get into some of the books that I actually physically own. So next up we're going to be talking about The Light in the Lake by Sarah Bauman. This is also a middle grade read, and it follows Addie after her twin brother Amos tragically drowns in a lake that she has spent so much of her time at, and this lake has just been so much of a part of their childhood and has really meant so much to them. And before Amos died, he kind of had this thing where he was convinced that there was like this kind of Loch Ness monster thing living in the lake, and after he passes, a scientific research team comes in and starts doing some science with the algae that's in the lake and like talking about some of the pollution. And so Addie decides to join these scientists as a part of like a school project in order to try and learn more about the lake and become connected to her brother, to see if there might really be some fantastical, mystical creature living there, or if it really is pollution, like what's going on, you know, kind of just a whole grief process thing where she's trying to connect with her brother while also learning to kind of come to terms with the loss and let him go. This story is really sweet for being one about grief and has some magical realism, a little bit of fantastical bits going on, but in a way where you can kind of explain it away as it not being magic, but there's always a little bit of mystery there. I really like those types of stories, and I think that they're a really meaningful way to talk about grief and passing and coming to terms with loved ones passing, and I always find those stories to be extra touching. So this one definitely has a special place in my heart because I think that it really went to some really great, sweet places, and I think that it's really hard to lose a sibling as a child. I never have, but I can only imagine that it is very, very difficult. It is one thing to lose like a parent or a grandparent because they're older and it's kind of more expected. It's another thing to be very young and to lose a sibling. So I think that this is a really sweet, touching piece about grief and loss and passing. Skipping back to non-physical real quick, the next book we're going to be talking about is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is definitely my favorite of all of her books that I've read so far. I've read, I think, about 4 of her books, and this is by far my favorite. This book is a modern-day retelling of Stephen King's Carrie, but with a racial twist added to it. our main character is mixed race, but she is white passing, and she works very hard to maintain being white passing, where she spends a lot of time straightening her hair and making sure that her hair stays straight, until one day she accidentally messes up, is outside in gym class when it starts to rain, her hair starts to really frizz up, and then everybody starts to stop and question and realize, like, holy crap, is she actually black? And there it turns into this whole dynamic shift, because now people are treating her differently because they realize that she is black, and there has been a racial divide for a really long time. This takes place, I think, in 2016 is the year that it's set in, but there has still been racially divided proms, in which the way that it works is the school doesn't have their own prom. I've heard that they were still like segregated proms, but I wasn't sure how it worked. So the school doesn't put on a prom, but the rich people get to put on a prom at their own country club and stuff like that, and that means that they can invite whoever they want, which means, of course, that they're only going to invite the rich white people, and all of the poor black kids end up not being able to go. So, because now there's this girl who was originally thought to be white and was originally allowed to go to the prom, now they're realizing that she's black, and now there's kind of being this turn in the school of maybe we shouldn't have these segregated proms, maybe we should work harder to make sure that everybody in the school has access to the proms. And there was actually a really interesting bit in this where several of the queer and black kids actually didn't want to desegregate the prom, because why would they want to invite all of the people who were racist and homophobic and mean to them to their prom? Like, now they're expected to have to congregate with all of these people who are just hateful to them. Of course they don't want to do that. And of course, like I said, it's a Carrie retelling, so our main character has these kind of mystical, magical powers that she's been struggling with throughout the entirety of the book. They kind of trick her into thinking she's going to become prom queen, but then dump all of this red paint on her, and it ends up turning into like this absolute bloodbath. If you are familiar with the story of Carrie, then you will see it very clearly here. But I think that the added element of race that Tiffany D. Jackson put in here, as well as the fact that it took place in a modern time, and really opened my eyes to how this, how segregated prom still works, because like I had heard about it, but I wasn't sure how it worked. Now I understand more. So good. Really great. I absolutely loved everything about it. This is best book of hers by far, and I'm excited to read more of her things because I really liked this. So I typically don't put rereads on my favorite of the year lists, because I feel, you know, if I've already read it already, I already have like thoughts and opinions on it. It doesn't really need to get on the reread list, on the favorite of the year list. But the last time I read this book was so long ago, and I enjoyed it so much when I reread it, that I decided it could go on this list. And that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This is about our main character, Ponyboy, who lives in the 50s in this, I don't know exactly where, like maybe Chicago or something like that, but there's this huge divide between the poor kids and the rich kids, and he ends up getting kind of sucked into this terrible circumstance where he accidentally like kills a kid after they get jumped, and he has to run away and hide, and just so many things go down. And it is so focused on friendship and the relationship between all of these boys and the things that they want to sacrifice for these boys. And this is just the best and clearest example of what I would call queer platonic relationships. You may not be aware of this might be the first time that you're hearing this phrase, queer platonic. What does queer platonic mean? So, queer is kind of an umbrella term that you can use to describe any sort of not typical relationship, really. You know, we used to think that it was just for like boys who like boys, or girls who like girls, or like transgender people and stuff like that. But really, queer relationships can apply to any type of relationship. Queer relationships can apply to more than just romantic and sexual relationships. So that's what this is. a queer platonic relationship because the feelings and the intensity that these boys have for each other is beyond that of what is normal relationship for boys and friends. It is very intense. It is familial. It is just so hardcore. Several of these boys die for each other in this book. So even though I know that S.E. Hinton is like, no, none of these boys are gay, like all of these boys are straight, like yeah, that's probably true, but this is still such a queer platonic and such a strong queer platonic book that I just love it. You can just, every single page, the genuine love that these boys have for each other, gay, straight, however, what the fuck you want to call it, is just so intense and so hardcore that it just hits you so hard. There's a reason why this book is a classic and has been a classic for over 50 years, and it's because of how these boys love each other. So all the books we've been talking about so far have been standalones, but this book is actually a part of a series, is the third in the series, and that is The Nobleman's Guide to Shipwreck and Scandal by Mackenzie Lee. This book is kind of a standalone because it takes place a good like 15 to 20 years after the first two books did and follows Adrian, the youngest of the Montague siblings. This entire book really revolves around Adrian and his relationship to his mother and how he is very desperately trying to find out what happened to her after her death. And this is a very sad and tragic story because, kind of spoilers a little bit, I don't feel like this is spoilers because it seems like this is one of the things that's supposed to be very obvious to the readers, and not just the readers, but all the other characters in the book. But Adrian himself does not come to terms with what it fully is until the very end. So Adrian is desperately trying to solve what is going on with a curse of the Flying Dutchman that his mother was apparently picked up and then dropped off by the Flying Dutchman, and she's the only person to have survived, and now all of these years later, the mother has died, and Adrian is convinced that it is this Flying Dutchman curse. When in reality, it is obvious to the readers, and it's obvious to everybody who Adrian kind of like tells the situation to, that Adrian's mother was not a victim of a curse. She just killed herself. And I think that that is such a good and interesting choice to make for this book, because Adrian is very clearly in hardcore denial about the reality of what happened with his mother for the entirety of the book, until the very end, obviously. And a lot of people are kind of, not like placating him, but realizing that like he needs to go through the motions of finding out what happened with this curse to come to terms with the fact that she didn't succumb to a curse, she just died. She killed herself, she ended her own life. And I think part of the reason why I love this book so much is because this Adrian, who has a lot of issues around his mother and trying to find his mother, reminds me a lot of another Adrian character who desperately is trying to find his mother that I have a strong love for and relationship with, a personal. I love him. Oh, Chat Noir. Adrian Agreste. Oh. But either way, Mackenzie Lee, even though writing historical books, these books take place in the 1700s, her books cover mental illness, epilepsy, disability, anxiety. Adrian has crippling social anxiety, and she just covers all of those things so well, even for like the time period that it's in, because obviously back then, if you had epilepsy or crippling anxiety, you didn't just go to a neurologist or go to a therapist. They just like threw you in an insane asylum and locked away the key. So it's the conversation that she has around all of those things is very related to the time and makes sense for the time, yet feels so applicable to today and the way that we feel about neurodivergency and the way that we interact with these things and stuff like that. So I just love this book so much. It was so good. Ugh. Another book. Again, about dealing with grief and trying to come to terms with that. That theme is going to be carrying on over into our next book, actually, which is Before I Let Go by Marieke Nijkamp. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce Nijkamp, but I hope I'm doing it right. This book follows our main character, Corey, who is flying back to a really small town in Alaska that she used to live in. She left about 7 months ago to go to boarding school, and she is returning because, unfortunately, her best friend, who was struggling terribly with bipolar disorder, died. She passed away. So when I first started this book, I thought it was going to be along the lines of the other two that I had mentioned, where it's just going to be kind of like a contemporary coming to terms with the fact that my friend died, she was struggling with mental illness, and unfortunately mental illness won out and took her from me, etc., etc. But there's kind of like more of a thriller aspect to this, because when Corey gets back to the small town, she finds that the people in the town who 7 months ago were shaming and treating her best friend as like this terrible, scary monster for having bipolar disorder, now they have developed this kind of like really weird culty relationship with her, where everybody loves her and everybody follows anything that she would have to say, and they kind of just like let her die because she would paint these paintings that apparently turned out to be kind of prophetic, and apparently she prophesied that she was going to kill herself, and so the town just like kind of let her die. And it's damn, this is a great, because usually we don't like taking mental illness and using it for thriller aspects, but this seemed to be doing it in a way that really commented on the fact that people will just stand by and they will let mental illness ravage the people that they love, and they will just stand by and they will just do nothing and just watch and let it happen. Or the only way that they will step in is if for some reason they can capitalize on that mental illness, or if for some reason that person is just benefiting them in some way. And so it was just really done in such a way that I think it spoke to mental illness, as opposed to turning mental illness into some scary, freaky thing, because the best friend having bipolar disorder was not the thriller, scary aspect to it. The relationship that the town had to her being mentally ill was the thriller, scary aspect to it. Loved it. Highly recommend it. I thought that it was great. All right, so now we have finished with all of the kind of regular novels, and we are going to be moving on into the graphic novel manga half of this video. And the first book that I have is Magical Boy by the Cow. This is such a fun read, because it takes the regular magical girl trope. You know, you find out that you have magical powers, there's a talking cat, you gotta use your powers to like save the world, and combines it with being a trans man. So our main character comes from a line of magical girls, and at the same time that he is coming to terms with being a boy, it is kind of shoved onto him that he has to have these magical girl powers with the full-on magical girl transformation and everything. They like put him in a dress and do up his hair and give him makeup and shit like that. And the whole part of the book is about him learning how to balance these two halves of himself, this thing that's like super feminine and stuff like that, and this part of him that is a boy, and he slowly learns how to master it enough that his magical transformation gives him like a boy transformation, instead of like continuing to give him dresses and makeup and stuff like that. And it is just so great, and about trying to get your parents to accept you for who you are and all sorts of things, and I just absolutely love it. Next up we have I Think Our Son Is Gay by Akira. You're gonna notice a theme for all of these graphic novels and manga, and that theme is definitely gonna be queerness. Sorry, just happens. This is a super sweet series that focuses on this mom who really thinks that her son is gay, and he definitely is, because like he drops hints like super hard and is not good at all about covering it up. He, like the mom will be like, oh, that guy on TV is cute. And he'll be like, nah, I don't think so. Well, I mean, like, according to the things that the girls at school say, they say that they don't think that this guy is cute, but apparently this other guy is super cute. And she's just like, okay. But this whole entire story is just about her kind of learning about gay people and her kind of like changing her thoughts and opinions now that she is learning that her son is gay, and like kind of learning about how gay people are treated in Japan, and like how should we, like, oh, previously before like I thought my son was gay, I probably would have interacted with this media this way, but now that I realize my son is gay, I'm starting to look at it more critically, and I'm starting to realize that like some of the behavior that I do and our society does is like problematic. And she starts to slowly like change some of the things that she does to show that she can be more supportive to him, so that when he does finally feel comfortable like fully coming out, then he can feel confident that she and hopefully the dad is going to be supportive of the fact that he's gay. So it's just super cute and super fun, especially there's other characters in here, like the younger brother is very clearly ace, and he very clearly like struggles with different aspects of gender because people will make fun of him for having long hair or having a lot of friends who are girls and stuff like that. So there are just so many different aspects of queerness that are being talked about, and to see how this like straight cis woman is thinking about gender and sexuality and how she can kind of be more accommodating to her son is just so sweet and nice and wholesome. It's nice to get wholesome queer stories instead of queer stories that are just about trauma and your family like hating you. Next up we have Crossplay Love by Toru. This is definitely my most favorite manga series of the year. It has one of my favorite tropes, stolen from Miraculous Ladybug. I know, Miraculous Ladybug, 2 references, 1 video, what are we gonna do? It has the love square between 2 people trope. So the way that this works is one of our characters here is a boy who is very introverted, doesn't really talk at school, and what he does is after school he goes to a maid cafe where he dresses up like a girl, you know, just boy things, just how you do. And he works at this maid cafe stealth. Nobody at this cafe like knows that he dresses like that he isn't a cis girl. So he works at this maid cafe just doing fun girly stuff after school. One day this punk guy is walking by and he sees this super cute girl and is like, holy shit, that's the cutest fucking girl I've ever seen. I need to go and talk to her. But she works in a maid cafe. I can't ruin my punk tough guy exterior by going into a maid cafe. Like, that would be super weird. What would be the best way to get this girl to talk to me and not feel put off by talking to a punk guy? I know, I'll dress as a girl and go into this maid cafe. So, as girls, they have kind of developed this relationship where they definitely are super crush on each other. But in school, as boys, they kind of do not get along at all because one is very introverted, doesn't really talk, and is an otaku, and the other one is very punk tough guy, stuff like that. Super cute, super fun, love the dynamic, the whole entire thing of them both like trying to keep the fact that they are really boys, but you can argue about what their gender is here. For anyone, I think that this one is actually gonna trans their gender out of the both of them. I think this one's gonna be a but anyway, all of the different like aspects between their relationship and stuff like that is just so much fun, and I absolutely love it. The next book that we're going to be talking about is a standalone manga. All the other mangas that I have mentioned and will mention are all part of a series. So this one is The Gay That Turned Kaiju by Kazuki Minamoto. This is about our main character, Takahashi, and he really looks up to one of his teachers. He doesn't really have a crush, even though he's gay. He just really, really looks up to this teacher until one day he overhears this teacher saying, "You know what I hate? Gays." Gays are disgusting. Ugh. Everything about them, nasty. And this like hurts Takashi so much that he's like, oh my god, like I have already been struggling with being gay, and now hearing this has just brought me to an edge, to a point where I either have to fundamentally change myself as a person, or I'm gonna end up killing myself. And this triggers such a psychological, physical reaction that he ends up turning into a kaiju, meaning he ends up growing this giant monster head. And because now he is so like physically a freak, so he gets like all of these reactions, you know, people treat him very differently. Now that he looks this way, all of a sudden being gay isn't really scary anymore. So he comes out and he's kind of like openly gay now and is like, yeah, I'm gay, what are you gonna do about it? And like is kind of like really intimidating people because he has this terrifying kaiju face. And his teacher that he looked up to feels really bad and wants to help him kind of get back to normal, if he wants, you know. And they kind of go through this whole entire journey of what he really needs to kind of be like a normal person, and that is to have the people in his life truly accept him for who he is. And it's just such a touching, deep, especially because it does go into colorism, which is something that doesn't really get brought up in Japan very often, is colorism. So they do talk about that a little bit in this book. I liked that. But, you know, there's just so many different aspects to it about how so much pain that comes from being queer is just around the fact that the other people in your life don't accept you, and that's what makes it so hard to accept yourself. Next up we have I Want to Be a Wall by Hanomi Shirono, and this is about our main character here. What is her name? Yukiro, I believe? Our main character, Yukiro, who has just gotten married to this man. And the thing about their marriage is she is an ace woman and he is a gay man. And they have just gotten into kind of like a weird relationship together. They just got married because everybody in their life has kind of been pushing them to do this. Their family has been setting them up with these kind of like arrangements and stuff like that. So they end up talking to each other and coming to the conclusion that it would actually be really beneficial for them to get married because they both know what the other person's sexuality is and fully supports them in their sexuality. Like, they're not trying to like do any sort of heterosexual stuff together at all. But they got the cutest little marriage there is. Like, he buys this book about like 800 things that husbands can do to show they love their wives, and he like goes through the book and tries to like do all these things. So he goes and like picks her up from work or like makes her dinner and stuff like that, while she fully supports him in the fact that he's still like in gay love with his best friend. Never told him about it, probably never will tell him about it, but she fully supports him in that. And just their relationship is so cute, so adorable, and I just really like, because it's such a unique type of queer relationship. This is not a relationship that you, I think, would, I don't want to say that you would never see this in America, but this is something that would be very rare to find in America. So I think that this is such a unique type of queer relationship to look at and read about and experience. Second to last book, we are almost done, I promise. This series I am absolutely obsessed with. I think there's like 23 volumes in the series right now, and I have read all of them, and that is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun by Adira. Now, if this title is throwing you, it did throw me at first as well, because knowing Japan, it kind of sounds like one of those like weird, sexy, kinky things. It's not at all. All that it means is that Hanako is kind of like Moaning Myrtle, where he just kind of like lives in the bathroom. That's just kind of like his home base. So this story follows our main character, Yashiro, who is a 10th grader, and she is desperate for love, and so she goes to the bathroom, knocks on Hanako's little stall door to ask him for a wish, and things kind of get a little bit messy along the way, and it leads her to having to become his assistant in all of the ghostly activities that he kind of does throughout the school. This book is a dark comedy, and it will definitely whiplash you with making you like forget, being like, oh my god, look at how cute the moke, they're adorable, look at how silly everything is, oh, it's so cute, and then hits you with some of the darkest shit out there. Oh my god. Ko and oh my god, I can't. These two, just, there's so much that happens in this that is so good, so heart-wrenching, so adorable, so tragic. I really want more people to get into this one, because I think that if more people could just like jump past the name of the title, that they would be really taken on a ride and have a great time. Alright, we are finally at the end of the video, finally at our last book, and that book is going to be Dick Fight Island by Ribun Ike. This, oh my god, this is something that is going to cause you to laugh and giggle and just have such a fun time, because the concept of this book is that there are 8 guys from these different tribes, and every few years there is a Dick Fight Island tournament, and whoever wins gets to become the next king for the next few years. And the way that you have this dick fight is that you guys jack each other off, and whoever finishes first loses. And the worst part about it is they're all doing it in a straight way. This aspect of it like features our main character who comes back from America. He's like one of the first people to really leave the islands and go to America. And so he learns about homosexuality in America. For some reason they don't have it in this country. And so he comes back and starts doing all of the dick fight stuff, but in a gay way, and blows a bunch of people's minds, and everybody is just like blown by the concept of jerking each other off gaily. And it's just so much about it is so funny and just so, oh my god. If you are depressed, if you're having a hard time, you have to read this, because you can't be sad when you're reading about guys trying to jack each other off in a straight way. That's impossible. Alright guys, so that's it. That's the end of the video. Those are all of my 15 favorite books from 2023. Who knows what the year 2024 is going to bring? Oh my goodness. If you have gotten to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. YouTube obligatory outro, like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. But besides that, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Bye.